Everton won, Arsenal won. I know it's a very, very late match report, and to be honest, as you can tell from the title, I'm not really going to talk too much about the game, about the intricacies of the game, about the game events, because I think the bigger thing we want to talk about is another kind of really poor refereeing decision, but also what we've learned from these two games since Bukayo Saka's been back, since the players have come back from that 2.5 week break, obviously international duty, and basically what we want to see ahead of Real Madrid, and try to give you my starting level, which literally, as we're recording, still really, really torn on what that should be. And I think the answer I'm going to give might be a touch controversial. But anyway, we'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second. Arsenal failed to win at Everton. Was it a performance that deserved a win? I thought the first half was. I thought the first half had loads of positives. I thought the first half had, we kept them really far from goal. I mean, everyone kind of sees Everton as this side that just part of the bus. They're really not that, especially at Goodison. They have a lot of energy. They can be really physical. They can really kind of get stuck into you. It doesn't mean they bop the ball about and that they're always brilliant to watch, but it means that they kind of, in their way, can really get on top of you, and that can be difficult for teams to manage. I just thought Arsenal did handle it really well in that first half, and with all the changes Arteta made, I was surprised how fluid we actually looked at times. Look, it wasn't a great first half, but you know what? For a team that hasn't looked great all season, has struggled for momentum, and Everton have been on the up since David Moyes returned, I actually thought there was plenty of positives, and the 1-0 lead through a goal in transition, a goal on the counter-attack, was really, really good to see, and really well taken from Trossard. Sterling had some brighter moments for sure. I still think there were kind of some sloppy moments, a bit weak on the ball and whatever, but generally, like, the players that came in, Jorginho, obviously Kivior, a lot of eyes on him, Ben White getting the start, I think a lot of them impressed, so fair play. That was the first half. Second half, Arsenal didn't really have control, and one of the brightest spots was Martinelli. I actually thought he gave O'Brien a really, really good battle in that second half. Forced some saves out of Pickford, combined well with Kieran Tierney, and that left-hand side seemed to tick a bit more as Mikel Merino was looking much more himself in midfield. I think that was one of his better performances in midfield. I think I recall maybe Monaco in the Champions League. Another one I remember was Liverpool at home. So it's not really happened for him as a midfielder, but I thought he definitely imposed himself physically in this game a lot more. So there were positives from that perspective. I also could see Trossard get the run in the false line as opposed to Marino up there with maybe Waneri in midfield, which I thought could easily have been what Arteta was going to go for. But it's good. I like the profiling of Marino as a left 8. I like seeing Rice as a box-to-box on the right side at times. It's good to mix that up. Waneri being played as a right-sided player and Trossard in the false line. And those are all things that I like to see from Mikel. So fair play there. Okay, so I think one of the reasons Arsenal struggled for control in that second half is I think, they basically had kind of momentum completely snatched from them with the penalty that for me shouldn't have been a penalty. That we have a tendency to kind of always go over the top and say, this was the worst decision I've seen, that's one of the worst, there's no point, there's corruption, there's this, there's agenda. And I think the bigger point, without going into Arsenal agendas and all that, and I have said on this channel before, and I have said on AFTV, that I feel we have been refereed differently. I feel decisions have gone against us that wouldn't have gone against other teams, or hasn't gone against other teams, whether it be clash of heads, whether it be, kicking the ball away when on a yellow card. And I see that penalty, and I think it's just two players coming together. I don't think anyone's attempted to make a tackle, commit a foul, no one's done anything. Two players sometimes run next to each other and they're getting each other's way. I think it was as much, Jack Harrison being the reason Lewis Skelly went down as it was the way the officials seemed to see it. And they went with this kind of clear and obvious thing. And actually, it's interesting because, they went with this clear and obvious thing by basically saying it wasn't clear and obvious and basically giving the penalty. Now, it casts my mind back to a couple of things we've seen this week. The red card that wasn't given for James Tarkowski, and then Ange Postecoglou's rant on Sky Sports about kind of VAR and clear and obvious and all that. And the one thing about VAR, even though, of course, it does often, as much as there's all these errors, it does often lead to, correct decisions being given and actually justice being done on the pitch. So often we're losing either time, and also we're losing kind of the ability to stomach when a decision goes against us. In real time, from the view I had in the ground, which obviously isn't as good as the referee's view on the pitch, but I could see a world in which the referee thinks Lewis Skelly has kind of run into Harrison and pulled him down. And in real time, if that's given in a world without VAR, you can kind of stomach that. In a world with VAR, when they can see it's absolutely not a penalty, it becomes so difficult. And you just think, I'd rather go back to a world where I just accepted human error. But then I remember that elsewhere in other leagues and other competitions, we see VAR used so successfully. And, okay, not perfectly by any means, but way more successfully. And you start just going, once again, it's the state of these officials to look at that James Tarkowski challenge and not give a red card is outrageous. And, Ange makes a good point, even though I think they came to the right decision on the Papsar, foul on, was it Enzo, I think? He ends up scoring and equalises for Tottenham, that's ruled out. One thing I think is true is if it takes 6 minutes for you to decipher whether, how long was it, 4, 5, 6 minutes? If it takes you that long, then it can't have been clear and obvious. And you just find that every referee and every VAR is just deciding to referee it differently. And again, you could stomach that more when there wasn't VAR. So, you didn't feel like they had to kind of hit this perfection. But you feel it more. Yeah. Sorry, guys, I'm waffling. I'm very tired. I've actually made it back to London after Liverpool. You could stomach that more when it was just referees refereeing the game in their way, in their kind of spirit. And that was it. And there was no technology. With technology, it just highlights their incompetencies so much more. So it does bring up the question, do we want VAR scrapped? The reality is I want the PGMOL scrapped, and I'd like a new refereeing governing body to come in and better referees to come in and the standard to go up to match the level of the Premier League. The reach of the Premier League deserves a better standard of officiating, and we don't get that. Is that the reason, by the way, for everything I've just said here? The reason I want to talk about it was because of what Ange Postecoglou said, what Tarkowski said too. Tarkowski shouldn't have played this game. Was that the reason Arsenal didn't win? No, I thought Arsenal were really toothless in the second half, and even the first half where we largely had controls of spells, I thought we just did so little to actually ask questions of Jordan Pickford. I mean, it wasn't bad, the first half. Like I said, I thought it was pretty good. The second half wasn't great. And we can only look at ourselves. And I think I read somewhere that we've scored 1 or less goals in 14 of our Premier League games this season. I think for Liverpool, it's only 4 games. I mean, that kind of tells you a lot, doesn't it? So, yeah, work for Arsenal to do there. Now, I said that I want to just reflect on what we've seen, therefore, in these 2 games and look ahead to Madrid. And this becomes difficult because Arteta's tried a lot more than I thought he would. He's mixed it up far more than I thought. Saka got 45 today. He got 35 in the week against Fulham. We've seen Marino up front and in midfield. We've seen Rice left 8, right 8 and in the 6. We've seen Arsenal with Ødegaard. We've seen Arsenal without Ødegaard. We've seen Trossard false 9. We've seen Martinelli, Trossard we've seen Martinelli and Sterling on the left. We've seen White and Timber at right back. We've seen Kivior at centre back because obviously Gabriel went off. So we've seen a lot of different things. Even Tierney's come on. So we've seen a lot of different things across the whole pitch. Even Jorginho's picked up minutes. And I think ultimately what I've landed on here is obviously David Raya starts in goal. And no matter what, as much as Kivior, I think, actually deserves some credit for what was it. Apparently got man of the match today. I didn't realise he was that good, but fine, he got man of the match. And I thought some of his passing in behind was really, really good. And that is definitely something that in almost every other game, that will be a weapon for us to get in behind teams. We've been doing it all season, and he's certainly done it in these last couple of matches too. That kind of curled ball, either to Martinelli or over the top to run like Trossard, is something that Kivior has been giving us probably more than we've seen from any player. I know Gabby's got it, but as in Gabriel Magalhaes has got that in him. But anyway, waffling about Kivior now. But good player. But when it comes down to it, I liked what I saw from Ben White defensively today, and Timber's been a rock all season. Obviously, you've got Saliba in there, and I think when push comes to shove, I keep thinking, but one of them will have to go to left back when we don't have the ball, and therefore I would probably... Sorry, when we do have the ball in possession, Lewis Kelly inverts, one of them go to left back, so do you kind of want a left footer in there? But you just worry about stopping Madrid first and foremost. So I would actually go Timber right back, Saliba right centre-back and White left centre-back, only because when we are building up, I still like the idea of Saliba kind of in the middle of that and Ben White left centre-back. I think Ben White's that touch better on the ball. I think he'll be a little bit more comfortable playing on his kind of weaker side. And then Lewis Skelly left back, I think has absolutely earned that place. Then in midfield, and this is where it gets controversial, because okay, well, let me actually give you the front 3 before I decide on my midfield 3. I actually think my front 3 is Saka, Trossard, Martinelli. And Marino's been kind of changing my mind with the goals he's been scoring and everything. But I look at that goal Trossard scored against Everton. And look, it's a team goal. Sterling does well, win the ball back in midfield and we're on the counter. But to be comfortable with left foot and right foot, find the corners like that, it's a chance for sure. I'm not saying, it was just a half chance. He made a lot of it. But I don't really know if any other Arsenal player scores that goal. I don't know if any other kind of makes that run, drags it onto their left foot and picks out the corner like that. I think against Madrid, we're going to need moments of magic. We're going to need someone who doesn't need a lot for it to happen. And I think Mourinho and his finishing has been much better than I expected since he's moved. Played his minutes up front and actually scored quite a lot of goals. But it's all come off service, and Arsenal aren't providing a lot of that for anyone. So I think we also need someone that's going to do quite a lot with little service. And I also like the way Trossard was dropping into pockets and linking up. And I think there'll be more space against Madrid, weirdly. Though they might dominate, there might be something on the counter. So I would go for Trossard in the false nine with Saka and Martinelli either side. And yeah, I would go Saka at the start. So then in midfield, it gets tricky because Declan Rice plays. The question is, does he play right 8, left 8 or 6? And then I would go for Odegaard. I know he's not been in form, but I think you've got to get your captain out there. And I think when he's at his best, Arsenal tick. We haven't seen that for a while, but we do. So I would get Odegaard in there. And then ultimately, it's between Mourinho and Partey. And the thing is, it's not a case of just one player or the other. It's a case of you're making a decision on Rice and the position he plays in these games. So I would, and it feels really harsh because I thought Mourinho was really good in this game, but I would go Partey and Rice. And the reason being is Real Madrid statistically, and I'm not saying their players aren't capable, of course they are, but statistically they're not actually the most combative in midfield. And I haven't watched loads of Madrid, so you can tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I feel like Arsenal could get on the ball there. And I think if we're going to get on the ball, we want our best ball players, and that's Odegaard and Partey in there. And then Rice, you've got him to cover at left back / left centre back, where already we've had to make some changes. He can drop in quite nicely. Lewis Skelly can invert beyond him, so you can almost have Rice and Partey together. But the other thing is that I think he might press onto their midfield at times and really help us dominate from front to back as well. So that would be my team. So to reiterate, Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba, White, Lewis Skelly in that order across the back four. Odegaard, Partey, Rice, Saka, Trossard, Martinelli. It feels very harsh on Mourinho, and I think he's a good option to bring off the bench, along with Waneri, along with Zinchenko, along with Kieran Tierney, along with Sterling. Look, they're not great, Waneri and Mourinho are kind of the only two I'm remotely excited about bringing on if we need a goal, but at least there's something there you can turn to, I suppose. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. PGMOL problems and my starting 11 for Madrid. Love to know what you guys think, but those are my main reflections post Everton. I've made it back. Arsenal fans were brilliant, and Arsenal, just need to go up levels for Madrid, but I think it's the kind of game that might pull something else out of our players. Let's see.